Exactly. What they're really trying to do with those towns with it when it comes to regulation is they're just trying to keep it under control and make it not like the Wild West where anyone can do whatever they want. And they want their cut, right? Because you are providing, you're selling something.
Yeah,
right?
They're like the mafia.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got to
every
give them
government is like the mafia,
If
right?
you just grease their palms a little bit, they leave you alone. It'd be a real shame if something happened to this business. You had to shut it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome back to REI Hot Seat. I've got John Bianchi with me today to talk about Airbnb optimization as a host. So whether you're doing Airbnb arbitrage or whether you're doing Airbnb as an owner investor, you're going to want to make sure you're picking the right market. John, you're here to tell us about that. Thanks for doing this.
I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, we talked about a year ago, I think.
Yeah, about that. On poker night, we had just like talked about what you're doing down in Cape Coral and Topomori and whatnot. And obviously I was super intrigued.
Yeah, so lots of, Airbnb discussions, and we went through a little bit of a optimization session, which I thought was super valuable, super cool. And I think more people need to know about it. Yeah. So this will be a good talk. Yes. But first off, just for like those who are on the fence with Airbnb, maybe they don't want to go down that route. Obviously, we know in Canada, there's been a lot of challenges for Airbnb operators. Yeah. Like why Airbnb and where would you do it?
So that's a loaded question to start off with, right? But why Airbnb is mainly just because of the cash flow. So if you're going to do Airbnb, it's because you want to get into the cash flow, the ability to find a property that will, help pay some of your bills. Mm-hmm. Now, to be able to find a property that's going to do that is extremely difficult. I mean, that's what I do all day, every day is simply look for cash flowing properties.
This is like your business, right?
I'm head of data for an investment fund, and it's my job to find the best markets, find what's the absolute best thing to purchase within that market, and then how to maximize the revenue out of that property, right? And then in the evening, I also have a consulting business where I teach other people how to do exactly that.
So for the fund you work for, they're doing Airbnb hospitality?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we buy the homes and then we convert them into Airbnbs, and then we run them in-house as Airbnbs as well, right? And we've raised over 40 million in the past 15 months and bought 80 plus properties across the United States. And so we're chugging along and moving, and we're heading into year 2 pretty strong so far. It's awesome. Love it. Love being part of the team. Like, love to be able to show you some of the properties we got. But to get back to your question of, why Airbnb, it's a lot of work to do Airbnb. So the only reason you do it is if you can make additional cash flow from the property in comparison to any other kind of real estate.
And give me an example, because people who've followed me know that we're doing Airbnb at our camp. I have not done it on individual houses yet.
Right.
So if somebody's looking at a house thinking, hey, I could rent that house for $3,500 a month or $4,000 if it's an up-down duplex.
Right.
Is that something that they could be thinking about doing it with Airbnb or no?
Well, potentially, right? So it's always going to depend on the numbers. And
numbers and the city, right?
In the city, yeah. So
because most cities in Ontario now, it's like I wouldn't even want to try. Like London, Toronto, Kitchener, Hamilton, like they all pass bylaws to stop this.
All of them, right? Yeah. Across the board. And mind you, there's a housing issue, you know what I mean, in Canada. So kind of makes sense, right? For the most part, I'm not totally against it. When they were first coming out with all this stuff, it was kind of annoying. But the reality is it does take away houses that could be long-term rentals. So it sort of makes sense. But a lot of the other places in Canada, like Muskoka, which we were talking about before this, they don't have regulations against Airbnb.
Well, and they might regulate it, but they're not trying to stop it because it's a hospitality focused area.
Correct. I live in Grand Bend, right?
Yeah, you're not going to rule out Airbnbs in Grand Bend.
Of course not. You can't. Half the homes there are purposely built for Airbnb.
Yeah, like the beach towns, you're going to find Airbnb gets the regulation, but they're still allowing it. It's just like a tax. There's probably like a 3% tax or something on it.
Exactly. What they're really trying to do with those towns when it comes to regulation is they're just trying to keep it under control and make it not like the Wild West where anyone can do whatever they want. And they want their cut, right? Because you are you're selling something.
Yeah,
right?
They're like the mafia.
Exactly.
You got to give
government is like the mafia.
If you just grease their palms a little bit, they leave you alone. It'd be a real shame if something happened to this business. You had to shut it down.
Yeah, exactly. Right? We put some rules in here that didn't allow for that. That'd be
a real shame.
So that's why anyone gets into Airbnb, because Airbnb is a lot of work, right? Like, why else would you get into Airbnb?
But if somebody thinking about it, like, cash flow is a unicorn in Ontario for the turnkey buyer. Like it's very, very difficult to find cash flowing investment properties. And then unless you're willing to come in with a big down payment. So if somebody's coming into something that might cash flow a couple $100 with a full down payment, if they do Airbnb, is it potentially possible, depending on the market, to get a few $1,000.
So it is. I mean, it definitely is. Yesterday I looked at 2 different properties. Now, mind you, these ones are in the States, so this probably isn't that helpful. But the reality is that I looked at 2 properties yesterday. One that would cash flow $30,000 a year, so just under $3,000 a month, and then another one that would cash flow $75,000 a year. So
It's cash flow 75,000
net profit in your pocket
after mortgage.
after mortgage.
Oh yeah, see that's the kind of stuff I like. And then what kind of price point for those?
One was 370. And then the other, which was the one that was going to make about 30,000 in cash flow, net profits. And then the other one was, I believe, 800,000 and needed about $200,000 to go into it to really get it to where it needed to be. So it was a lot of money up front, but even after all of that, it would still,
it sounds like it justifies the effort.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
So I think the big takeaways so far is, pick markets where you think that there's longevity. Like you're not going to have somebody come in and regulate you in another year. You're going to put all this time and effort in, and then all of a sudden they regulate you and you're out of the business.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I think and I always tell people regulation is step 1 and data is step 2.
Yeah.
Right?
So make sure you can do it. Yes. And that no new legislation is coming, and then start focusing on next steps.
Yeah, and the best way you can do that is actually find a market that already has regulations in place where they've already.
Yeah, because then it's not going to be a slap in the face. It's it's already there. Like for instance, Cape Coral. I know we were talking about that. They already have Airbnb regulation. Yeah. It's just like it's so loosely enforced that people just do pretty much whatever they want.
Exactly. Yeah, and Cape Coral is a great example of a market that was popular with travel well before Airbnb was a thing.
Yeah, it already had rentals. Yeah.
So they've been established, like all of Florida has been established for decades upon decades prior to Airbnb coming into play. And so that's why it's easier to go into those locations and know that you're not going to get regulated out.
And so I'm guessing that unless you're going to go to the States, you're going to be going more with the Airbnb vacation model, right? Like, because there were people doing it in London, Ontario, and in Hamilton for like nurses and doctors and midterm stays,
which is a different game.
It's a different game. Yeah.
That's corporate rentals.
Rentals.
It's only called midterm rentals ever since COVID hit because of the change that Airbnb made to their platform.
Yeah. So corporate rentals. Yeah.
Corporate rentals. Yeah.
And that's what. Like I've Karsten Howe, I've had him on this show before. That's what he refers to it when he's actually trying to find landlords that'll arbitrage properties to him. In other words, he'll rent it from them. He says, "Hey, I do corporate housing."
Yeah, yeah. It's
they know
it works. They know but that is a good way into those buildings, those bigger buildings, being like, I do corporate rentals, and that's been around forever. And people are like, yeah, sure. And they're like, well, by the way, when it's not corporate, when I don't have someone in there for a month, I'm going to try and get somebody in there for like a couple of days. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah that's fine.
Yeah,
right.
Slide that in there.
They just like slide that in there, and it works out. But
yeah, okay. So basically, just to recap, we're talking about a scenario where you're going after people who are not doing it for like leisure. They're traveling for work or what have you, and that's a great market, great way to get in the door. Arbitrage is something we'll touch on briefly here today, but I think we're going to focus this just picking your market, however you're going to do it, whether you're going to buy or you're gonna try and rent a unit and re-rent it on Airbnb.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with you talking about US, like, because I guess in Canada, there are some markets we could look at. Like I'm investing in Tobermory. I think the numbers are actually pretty good there. Like what we've been able to do on some of our stuff. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Love to. Yeah, we'll definitely save some time for that too.
Okay. So what's the most impactful thing we could go into now? Talking about picking a market?
Let's go picking a market, because that's something that people is tangible that they could use, and then we can get into the fun stuff a little bit.
Okay, let's pick a cash flowing market right now. What do you do? Start me off here.
So, there's different softwares that are out there, such as AirDNA, Price Labs, STR Insights. These are all softwares that allow you to analyze markets at a high level. Yeah. And so that is a really good starting point, but it's not going to allow you to truly know if a place is profitable or not until you dive deep into the numbers.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, say you have a couple of markets that you're considering. Let's say Muskoka, Kawartha Lakes, maybe you're thinking Calgary, somewhere out in BC. What you want to do is go on to these sites and just start to look at the numbers on a high level and get an understanding of how much profit could potentially be made in those areas, and then getting an understanding of how much the real estate actually costs in those areas as well. Right?
Yeah. So can you show me? Like, we have a screen share up here.
Have a screen share going.
So let's look up one of these markets and.
So I can signing in right now to AirDNA. Just let it load. Give it a second here. Always takes a second to sign in. Make sure it's still on the Wi-Fi. So let me put in Muskoka. Loading. You can obviously see this. Second.
Yeah, and just so people know while this is loading up, so AirDNA does have a free feature, and then if you want the real data, you gotta pay.
You gotta pay, right?
But you can do the rentalizer, is it? Like where you can actually give them an address?
Yeah.
Do you trust that?
No,
I don't trust it.
I have an entire video where I pretty much bash any one of those softwares that exists out there. There's Rentalizer is one, but there's a bunch of other tools that do it as well. And I actually got in trouble from AirDNA for putting that out there.
Oh, really? They said
they got a little upset with me. We work with them pretty closely, but it was just really it really bothers me because that tool predicts how much property is going to make, and then that's also what I do. I manually predict it, and I've been right within 16%, which means that if I thought the property was going to make 100,000, it's actually doing 116,000, and I know that because we've bought.
So you've been under consistently by 60.
Under, which is
you'd rather be under.
You'd rather be under, right? Whereas and then I took all of my predictions and plugged it into Rentalizer and these other tools. And they were either way over by like 100% or way under by like a 50%. Yeah. And everywhere in between. And the issue is you don't know which one you're getting. So sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong.
Consistent is better. So
exactly.
So you looked at Muskoka here. Is this paid data at this point?
Well,
some of this is
okay.
Probably.
So what I'm going to show you is not going to be paid data, right? Yeah. If I were to hover over this, you can see there it shows the revenue number in the bottom right corner there over each one of these properties. Yeah. That is paid data.
Okay.
What's not paid is that you can actually see the market grade, you can see the average daily rate, the occupancy, and then the revenue. And what I think most importantly is this active rentals number here. Okay. It's a combination of these two. So the way that I like to compare markets side by side, and when I'm using AirDNA, is I'm looking at the number of active rentals, and then I'm also looking at this number over here, which is the average monthly revenue being made across all of these rentals. Okay. And so the way that I like to think about it is the person who's dead in the middle here is making about $3,800 a month, right? And then the further, the higher you go in this, right? Because that'd be the middle. So the higher you go, the bigger that number gets.
Yeah, and so then, the most premium of that batch.
Correct. Yeah. So, and the more listings you have, the higher that number will continue to stretch, right, and get larger and larger as it goes on, as it gets to the top performing people. And so, if you had two markets where they both had about 1,700 listings, and one was showing that the average monthly was 3,500, and the other one was showing that the average monthly was 5,000, it would become very obvious which one has better revenue.
Better revenue for sure, but the one thing is we obviously have to consider is price of acquisition.
Correct. That's step two, right? So it's you've now you figured out where more money is being made just simply that way. Then it's like, okay, well, how much does the real estate actually cost within that market compared to the other one, right?
And I will throw this out there. I think this is a great way to approach as a starting point. Yep. Know full well though that you could have a D grade market that you could absolutely smash in.
Yes.
It's because you can make the deal. Like this doesn't allow for what your unique touch is. But if you're thinking in generalities, all things kept the same, you're probably gonna have an easier time in the higher rated market.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And one thing I want to say right now is don't pay attention to that market grade.
Okay, so
hate it.
Why do they say C? Is it because it's so expensive to buy properties there?
Well, if you look, so they got rental demand is low, revenue growth is low, seasonality is really bad, and regulation is really bad. That's what their makeup of.
Yeah, they don't love the regulations.
They don't love the regulations. They think it's very seasonal. There probably hasn't been a large revenue increase year over year within this market. Maybe it's even decreasing because of COVID, shot it up. And so now it's kind of coming down a little bit. But that does not mean that there's not money to be made in this market.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think is such it's their own arbitrary way of trying to figure out if a market is good or bad. But all that really matters at the end of the day is, can you buy a property at a good price that will allow you to cash flow, right? Is there enough money being made there?
Yeah. So this is the macro. You still want to dive into the micro a bit and see if there's some examples.
Yeah, you need to, right? So you definitely, without a doubt, need to be able to know if a market is truly going to be beneficial or not. You need to dive deeper into it. And that's where you have to kind of pull out the wallet and start paying for things. And I'm going to get into.
But how do you decide?
Exactly.
When are you going to do that?
So this is I've actually had hundreds of calls where people will call me because I have products where I give market analysis for people, and they call me and they say, I don't know what market to choose. And so I essentially walk them through a process. I even have free training online about this as well. But I always start off with, what market are you in? Right? Or what market is very close to you? Because that's always going to be the absolute easiest market to get started in, or at least to get your feet wet. Whether that be through management or arbitrage or purchasing, the market that you're in, if it's a good market, like for me, as an example, Grand Bend, there's potential for me to get started in Grand Bend because there's travel demand in Grand Bend.
Oh yeah.
And so it wouldn't make sense for me to then it wouldn't make sense for me to start in Muskoka over Grand Bend if I lived in Grand Bend.
Yeah.
Right. But not everyone has that luxury. And so
Yeah.
the next best thing is to pick a market that you want to go to.
Yeah.
So one thing is that everyone always believes that there's this magical market that's out there, right? The one that does better than absolutely everyone else. But the reality is that most markets are pretty even. Like think of hotel rooms. They cost roughly the exact same regardless what market you're in. If you go to Calgary, if you go to Toronto, they're going to be almost the same amount of money. Maybe it's a little bit more in Toronto because the real estate's a little more.
Yeah, you do have some higher ones in Toronto, but
you get the idea, right? And so Airbnb is no different. And so for the most part, most markets are fairly similar regardless of, especially when it comes to the profit that you're going to be
making.
There
are some variances, but yeah, this is where, I mean, I know guys it's really about, can they get the product type they're looking for in the city? It's not so much the city, but can I get the product type? Of course, you don't want to go to a city that's going to regulate the crap out of you.
Of course. Well, that was step one, right?
Yeah.
Now we're into step two.
Yeah.
And so, but the reason I always say pick a city that you like is because once again, there's so many different cities that will cash flow. But there's ones that you care about more than other ones. Yeah. And that you would enjoy to go to. And you're going to have to go to it a lot, especially if you don't live there. And so just pick one of them that you would enjoy visiting, right? Mm-hmm. As an example, like, should I go to Muskoka or should I go to Calgary, right? Yeah. Which one do I like more is it really what it should come down to. And then you start deep diving into the data of that one specifically. Yeah,
I think there's a lot to be said for that, because if it's going to consume your time, it should be a topic matter that you like, a city that you wanted to go to anyway, and one that you're excited to share with people about all the cool things you can do there.
Yeah, right? Some people love the East Coast. Some people love mountains. Yeah. Well, if you loved the East Coast, why would you go to the mountains? It's kind of, when you put it that way, it makes it really simple.
Or if you like going to Nashville and you like country music, then you find a rental in Nashville.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Across the United States, it's there's so many variances of what you can get and not get, and different political views and stuff like that, right? So I'm always telling people, just focus in on what you care about.
Generally speaking, even in the blue states, and I could be mistaken here, but it seems like the regulations are less so, like even in Boston or something.
Well, you're comparing it to Canada.
Yeah, Canada's pretty left, but some of these blue states are pretty left too.
They are,
but not compared to Canada.
Not compared to Canada. In reality, it's like China, Canada, blue states, right? So that's kind of the grading scale.
North Korea just slightly above China there.
Yes, only slightly. But yeah, so that's you are right though. Yeah, the regulations are a little bit less. Like, I mean, Chicago's a blue state, or at least a blue city, and they,
Illinois is a blue state.
Illinois is blue state. Yeah. But yeah, Chicago's a really blue city, and they still allow it in certain ways. So you just have to follow their rules.
It doesn't have to be your home like it does in Toronto.
No, it doesn't have to be your home. I mean, they do have something along the lines of being your primary residence, but there is a ways that you can still, without getting into it.
And you used to do some arbitrage yourself in Chicago.
Yeah,
I think,
so
right?
I had 15 in Chicago, 2 out in Scottsdale. Then COVID came, wiped all those out. I got them all rented out long term. Then I sold off the contracts that I had to another Airbnb at the time. Okay. Yeah. And now I'm actively working to get my portfolio back.
Now getting her back up and going. Okay.
Working on it.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, so this is like super valuable stuff. So keep leading me down the path.
Yeah. Okay, so what we figured out is we started off with regulations, then we kind of did an overview of AirDNA alone. There's other things you can do to figure out which place you want to go. Then we figured out pick one that you actually care about more, and then we're gonna have to get to the point of wanting to pull out our wallet to actually figure out what is the if the market will work or not, right? Yeah. And so there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can use AirDNA and actually once again, buy a subscription.
And what that would get you is being able to hover over these individual properties and see how they perform.
Exactly. And so you can hover over these and you can start to review the data in depth. Now, I have an entire course on YouTube that's free that teaches you how to manually extract the data that you have here, plug it into a spreadsheet. And then when it's plugged into a spreadsheet, it's a lot easier to start seeing patterns and figuring out where the money is being made and where to avoid. Yeah. And so that's where I don't know how to do it any other way, right? If you just looked at the high level of this and you just saw all these different dots, you can't keep it all in your head. You don't know where
you can't make sense of it. And I know we were talking about needing to scrape the data and get rid of the bad data, because there's bad data.
That's everything. So the vast majority of the data within AirDNA is bad. Also, every other site, it's the same idea. It's not bad, it's just useless.
Because it's not enough track record. It's taking stuff that's only been up for a half a year sometimes. Exactly. And it's not being accurate in its estimations.
Correct. Yeah. So to explain that, and I talk about this on every single podcast that I'm on because it's so important. What makes something good data or useful data is when the algorithm that these softwares are using have been tracking it for over 250 days. and it's been ran by a full-time host. And so when you get that combination of those two, then you have a piece of data that is most likely accurate and giving you what the true revenue potential, annual revenue potential of that place is. And it's also gross annual revenue. And so then when you have that, then you can find other pieces of good data that are also like that.
Yeah.
And then you combine all of those in a nice spreadsheet, and you're able to see, you know, how well do 5 bedrooms do?
Yeah.
How well do 4 bedrooms do? And now you can start to see a pattern between these different homes and how much they're actually making. And then you can start to see why one would do better than the other, and you start to study it. Once again, I explain all of this on YouTube. I'm gonna keep saying that.
There's a lot to learn here, and obviously this is why you have a service that people pay for, because it's work.
It's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I'm explaining all this is that by going through this process of you've picked a city, you bought on AirDNA, you've extracted the data, or you use some other way to get that data into a spreadsheet, and you are now analyzing it. What you're going to be able to find are you're going to be able to figure out how much a 4-bedroom makes within this certain section of the city if it has 2 living rooms and a nice kitchen and a good sized backyard with a hot tub. You're going to go, that home, if it has all those qualities, will make $100,000, because I can see that there's 5 other people doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Then you can go on to Realtor.ca, and you can then find properties that are available and figure out if those properties would cash flow. Right?
Yeah, based on the purchase price.
Based on the purchase price.
You know what they'll make. You can sub in the taxes, insurance, all that, and then kind of work it out.
And so it's called the Burger King logic that I'm explaining right now. McDonald's spends millions of dollars to figure out what corner to be on. Burger King opens up across the street. All we're doing is we're reviewing the properties that are already up and running that are working. We're taking their data, their information, and we're saying, okay, if we do this, we'll make roughly around $100,000. Therefore, if we get a home and we find a home that's very similar to it, we put together the same amenities and design, then we will also make around $100,000. And that it sounds super simple, but it's been working for me for years, and it just keeps working. So that's what you have to do to figure out if that market has properties that can cash flow.
Okay, so what do you think is more valuable here? Should we dig into one of these, click on one of these, and actually show the data that it has, or should we talk about what market you like and how you arrived at that?
I think we should probably just, if anyone wants to jump in and go into these sort of details, they can
check out your YouTube videos.
Check out YouTube videos to make this a more.
And you can play around with AirDNA. Just go. It's free to start. Just play around with it.
Yeah, I'd rather. We got quite a few topics we want to cover here.
Go for
right?
it.
So,
you lead me to what you think is most valuable next.
Well, okay. So if we're talking about Canada,
yeah,
and we want to talk about the markets that you want to go into in Canada, I'm going to talk about Ontario for a minute. I have a theory of in Ontario. What you want to do is you want to try and find a market in Ontario that would allow you to make money in the winter and in the summer. And if you can kind of find one that allows for that, that's going to be your best case scenario to help you get through the entire year.
Which I think is so Kyle Ford and Chelsea Middleton, they were doing this. They were promoting their winter stays at their cottages. Like they're primarily a seasonal business, but they'd find a way to get people to come up in the winter.
Yeah, he's from Grand Bend too.
Yeah, so you must know him then.
We've chatted, but we're not super close. But what he's doing in Grand Bend is amazing, and what he's doing with his business is amazing too.
Yeah. So because I know like Chelsea's like big with marketing, so she would actually post on groups in like Hamilton and Milton and whatever, and just say, hey, like why not make winter a little bit better? Yeah, come stay in our place, use a hot tub, have a fire, like get away, and they'd get people.
That is very impressive, to be honest. It's very impressive to do it. It's also extremely difficult to do that, but they clearly
it takes consistency.
It also takes what you just explained logically makes sense, and it's marketing. Yeah. And so if you just sort of think outside of the box and do a little bit more effort to try and pull in people from these major metropolitans that maybe work remotely and want to go to a little quiet town, right? Grand Bend in the winter is awesome. I love it in the winter. There's nobody there. There's a couple restaurants. Everyone kind of knows each other. It's really nice, right? So it makes sense that they could pull people in for that reason. But that is the thing you have to do in Canada. If you're going to be going outside the cities, you have to figure out ways to get people to your place. And so some of the stuff that I was thinking is, if you're near the snowmobiling trails, because a lot of people love to do that. If you're near ice fishing areas, a lot of people love to do that.
Our camp is near all that stuff.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Right. How do you guys do in the winter?
Well, the bylaw won't allow us to stay open in the winter.
Is that just because the stuff that you have is not insulated?
We can only do camping for 7 out of 10 months, whatever sense that makes.
Gotcha.
So basically, what is that? 8 months out of the year.
Yeah.
but we are actually acquiring something else
Okay.
that will be functional year round.
Cool. Okay.
Or could be. Yeah. I mean, technically we'll have to do some work to make it that way, but
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if with your campground that it probably even makes sense to just not have it open during the winter because it's probably so dead.
oh yeah, we
Right?
don't have it open.
Yeah,
we winterize everything.
Even
and
if
shut
you
it
were
down.
legally allowed to have it open.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
nothing is designed to be open year round, so it's not going to work well.
Right.
Whereas the new property, you know, we're looking at acquiring something. We are acquiring something waterfront,
Nice.
and you know, it's going to have those options there. And snowmobile access, I'm not sure how close we are to that. The thing with our camp is we're like right off the trail, which is kind of frustrating. If only we could make use of that. If only we could make use of that.
If only. Yeah, that would be really cool. But that is, you know, that's one of the just simple things I've been thinking about because I have so many people from Ontario asking me like, how would you do it? Where would you go? And I'm not planning on doing it in Ontario.
Yeah.
But if I was going to stay in Ontario, that would be how I'd be considering, right?
Yeah.
Considering it.
And as I mentioned to you off camera, I had Ben Julius on my podcast, and he gave some examples in Muskoka of stuff he bought around 800, 900 and was, you know, getting like 5,000-6,000 a month profit after mortgage.
Profit. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it is possible to do really, really good deals in Ontario still.
I agree. And I always stress the fact that you have to do your research to find those good deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to, if you could connect the two of us, because I want to talk to him about his deals.
Yeah.
I want to sort of grill him on how he did his analysis to figure out how he got there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting conversation. But I mean, Muskoka is a good example of where there's so much money being made that if you can get the right property and do it better than most other people, then there is the potential for you to make $6,000 net.
The key I live by this is you never want to be average in anything you do. Never. If you're planning on being average, you are going to have struggles.
You want to, so as you say that, I just want to show some of the Techvestor properties that we have here.
Yeah.
So this is one that we put up in Scottsdale, Arizona recently, and this is just the backyard that you're looking at. This home will make somewhere around 225 to 250. And we've very strategically purchased this. I can't say why we purchased this.
Can you tell us what the purchase price was?
Yeah, it was about $915, $960, something along those lines.
Okay.
So it's nothing too crazy. We have a 20% purchase price to.
That's your requirement.
20%.
The 20% rule, we'll call it.
20% rule. That's what that's what I've been calling it. I just always struggle to say it.
So 250, you said about on a 900,
225
on a 900,000.
900,000, yeah. 950 would probably be a better estimate.
So you're about 25%, 23%, somewhere in there.
And then obviously, you know, you can see this backyard and how much we would have had to put into this. So that bumps us up closer to that 20%.
That's why. Okay. So you guys did add you spent some money here, clearly. Like there's the furnishings alone. Like, okay. So that kitchen's actually a little older, but everything else you've done is like,
isn't that
over the top?
This is one of my favorite things about Airbnb that everyone always doesn't realize or misses, or, you know, there's the traditional real estate mindset is to fix up the kitchen and the bathrooms. That's like step one, right? Increases your equity. When it comes to Airbnbs, that doesn't always matter.
No, it's everything else.
Yeah,
it's everything else.
All the amenities.
They're not buying the place.
They're not buying. They're just staying there. They don't care what the kitchen looks like. They care if you have a hot tub or not.
Yeah.
Right. So
which you definitely do here, right?
Yes. Yeah. Without a doubt, we have a whole like hot tub zone with a bar around it and everything.
Yeah. So some of the other interesting, noteworthy things here, and I think it's an Arizona vibe, is like basketball court. You got like the putting green.
Yeah. You know.
You've done a lot here.
Correct. Exactly. And Scottsdale is known for golf. They have the Waste Management every single year. It's like one of the biggest places for people to go for golf. So just having something like that we're thinking about our customers. We're thinking about exactly what they want. We think about what amenity drives the most revenue for them, right?
Yeah.
What moves the needle.
What about golf simulator?
We have that in some of our other markets. We have down in our Florida markets. We have that just because getting it set up, we put it into the garage, and we need enough clearance.
So in Florida, you have enough clearance.
So it's property by property.
Yeah, some of
right.
them do.
Yeah. So as long as the ceiling isn't done.
And how much does that, like a decision like that? Because golf simulator is like what, $30,000-$40,000?
No, we can do it for 10.
10 with like
the
a
entire
TrackMan
thing. Pardon?
With TrackMan or something else?
I don't know actually what we use because I'm not on that side.
Okay,
of the
but
company.
you guys are obviously getting deals because you're doing a lot of them.
Yeah, we also, so I know there's a golf simulator that is like $30,000-$40,000, but there's also another one that works just fine, but it doesn't cost that much. It's just not as intense. Yeah. And so that's the one that we're using that's allowing us to do it for
okay. So you're getting it done. And what does that 10K do for you? Does that lubricate a few extra
without a doubt
stays?
Well,
it's hard to track exactly, right?
Okay, so this is like the golden question, right? What do I spend my money on when it comes to amenities? Like, how do I know how much I'm going to get in return if I add this hot tub or if I add this golf simulator? Like, what is the return? And the reality is that there is no way to track how much a hot tub actually gives you in
unless
return.
You had two identical houses on the same street,
one
with, one without.
Yeah, that would be like an A/B test, but you would also need even more than that. You know what I mean? You need a lot more. And I work with other people, and there's one other guy I'm really close with. He has his own software company within the Airbnb industry, and he's trying to take all this amenity data and figure out a way to predict how much one is worth over the other. And it's still in the works, and but it's just not there yet. And so,
and you're not going to know. It's just so difficult to quantify something like that to precision. But you can tell by asking people, why'd you come and stay with us?
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is the way that we think about it, and the way that I tell people to think about it is that you want to study all the top properties. You want to in your market or any really good market, you want to understand what the people at the very top are doing. So outside of the luxury locations, I'm talking about the regular looking homes that are stellar listings that they put together. And you really want to study them through and through. You want to understand what amenities they have, what keeps showing up with these top properties.
So just regular homes that are
regular
top
homes that they've done to the nines, right? Maybe whether it be the design, whether it be the size of the interior, what the kitchen looks like, what amenities they have. And then what you want to do, that's your competition. You got to think of it like you're in a business. So you go, okay, I'm in competition directly with these people. Now what I want to do is I want to put together a listing that's going to compete with these top people. And therefore, to do that, I need to have X, Y, and Z. And that may be like so as Scottsdale as an example, you absolutely need a heated pool, a hot tub, and a putting green. You need those three things at a minimum to compete. Anything above that is to beat your competition.
And you figure that out by looking at the top performers that were regular houses that you could acquire.
Yes.
And what they had that was above normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what kept showing up.
Yeah.
And another great example of this is that we had one home that we got very, very early on, didn't have a hot tub, didn't have a putting green. And we saw that it wasn't getting any bookings. And so we were like, okay, add that in. We've got to add it in. This is, almost a year ago now. That we were doing this, and we've only been around for 15 months, right? So like it was very early stages, and we added the hot tub in, we added the putting green in, and like you just see the bookings take off, and then the property is now making way more money than it was, trending higher.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes very, very obvious that those are the amenities that make sense to add.
Okay.
So, and I mean, like for an example with your Tobamori, if I can. Without studying the market, I can almost guarantee you that if you don't have a fire pit for each individual location, that's going to kill your revenue.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't have like a communal, I was thinking about this before I came here, hanging lights over every single area, picnic table over every single area.
Yeah, we do have all those things.
Like if you get an individual hot tub, it's just a small one, maybe those like 2-seater ones.
So we tried that. We were doing the wood burning ones. We just don't have power service to all, they can handle, you need 60 amps for a hot tub. So
yes. Yeah.
That's a little much.
I also wouldn't be surprised that if you guys designed the listings in a very fun way like that, like I don't know exactly what style would go, but giving each listing like a really good theme.
Why you pull it up?
Yeah,
Miller Lake.
Here's a great example of one right now that this is in Waco, Texas.
Okay.
And this person has so many of these. He has, I think, somewhere around like 30 to 60 containers.
That's nice.
So I love that you said that. This is nice. It's well done, right? It's even got a little
This is a little container.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that one, right? And now we go to this one over here. And this one here is also a little community. These are called Alpine A-frames. This is a communal pool that they have. Each one has a hot tub. It's on this little lake that's here. And as you can see, it's obviously done really nice, right?
They're spending a lot on furniture.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this one here, first off, which one of these two do you think is making more?
Out of like the container or this?
Yeah.
Tough to say. Like it's all about the experience. I think the container.
You think the container's making more? Just
because container's so unique, but there's a lot that's better on the other one. Like the A-frame is the obvious one that you would initially think, but I just think that the container's unique. Yeah.
Interesting response. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
So this container home is making $23,000
a month,
a year.
A year. Okay.
This is making $115,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like there's obvious reasons that you would think that's better. I just think container's so unique. But the photos look like crazy.
So the reason I pulled this example up is because of that. Because the containers are very unique.
Yeah.
So you're not wrong by saying that. What the container homes did wrong is they don't have any amenities.
Yeah, I wasn't even paying attention to that. So yeah, you're right. Like no amenities. It looks cool, but
looks cool, no amenities.
So the amenities are what does it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see that over and over and over again, that those little even the fact that this place didn't take more photos up top or have some sort
they
of,
could have done so much more.
So much more. You got to create that experience, right? Especially with the unique places.
Which we really do. If you've I don't know if you can pull up ours there, or I can even do it on my end. All right, so this is this is our tent.
Nice.
One of them. Like we have many like this. You can see we've done very well on these tents. Like we have some that have like this many reviews and are 5-star.
Yeah.
So yeah, just super unique. Like you're not going to see this. Like these photos, I've posted these on Google in one way or another, and they've had like 70,000 views. Like these photos get blown up.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
So people really like these photos. We're obviously doing pretty well. Like, we had a late start last year, but we got our super host at the end. We had 183 reviews over the course of last year. Yeah. And where do I see our listings?
Click the photo there.
This one?
Yep. And then let that load. And
Yeah, so like this one, I'm sure there's much more we can do with this one, but we've done well with this one too. You got you can see the chairs, you can see the fire pit, that there as well. And then the inside is actually quite inviting as well. Like we really lucked out with this trailer. So we decorated it, but we got it already looking like this.
I'll tell you right now, I have a whole video on this. If you just hire a photographer who knows really well how to take like artistic, fun photos that show off an experience, you will increase the revenue of this trailer by $5,000 easily. Without, it'll be the best investment that you make.
All right, so you're gonna connect me with somebody.
No, you got to go find that. I don't know. I don't know anyone, but
so if we got a really artistic photographer here,
exactly. If anyone knows how to do that. But I mean, so here's my quick analysis on this. So you have two seats that are sitting around that campfire. You have one photo of the campfire where it's actually on fire and it looks good, which is great, but you've got to have like hanging lights going on here. There should probably be like some sort of like lawn games as well. The interior does look good, so it's just a matter of getting better photos out there. But then like even if you added something around the picnic table where there was a hammock, you could add very easily between those trees. You could all these,
the hammock could go right here. That's true,
right? But then trying to take that logic and the logic of amenities driving the majority of the revenue for these unique experiences. So it's great that you have this, but then you give them this little oasis that's their own. And that's really where you're going to see the biggest increase. And like we're talking less than $500. Right?
So you're saying even if the scenery isn't perfect, we kind of just optimize all around it, what it offers, and then really focus on those things.
Exactly. Because if you think about the container home, it had nothing. Right. And right now, when I look at yours, it has the fire pit with a couple of chairs, and that's about it. Not to be in like, this is all I do all day, right?
I appreciate this. You can be as blunt as you want.
So the reality is, if you could turn this into a, let me show you a listing if I can.
If I can pull the screen here, pull the screen back here. I'll stop share.
I see so much potential with your properties. There's you have everything. You have the location. Like Tobermory is one of the best locations for it. You have all the listings there, and now it's just a matter of making it feel and look like they're going to be getting this amazing experience through your photos. And then once you do that, you're just be able to charge such a higher ADR for those spots, and you're going to get your return on that place is just going to go through the roof.
So we bought a whole bunch of these wood saunas. So we have a wood sauna on one of them. We haven't marketed that yet. That's for this year. And then we had a whole bunch of the hot tubs that we bought, wood burning hot tubs. But then when we got them, we ordered them before we actually got to see a model, and we looked at it. We're like, the liability to use these is too high. We can't do this.
Oh yeah,
it was just too dangerous. We're just like, no, we maybe at somebody's home They can do that because they're the only ones using it and they know how. But to have, people who might be drinking, doing that kind of thing. No, we were all just like, no way, not doing this.
That makes complete sense. Now, and you don't necessarily need a hot tub there. That was just something I was kind of
but like you're saying, like there's not a lot of room to play games in front of that trailer per se, but our tent sites are quite large. Like we have a lot of room on them, so maybe we could, but it would bugger up the photos a little bit. Like they wouldn't look that good with a corn shoot game on the front of it.
So I think it's a matter of maybe studying some of the other listings that exist and figuring out exactly what they've done.
So we'll have to find other glampers because we were like unicorns for the first half of last year because no one was doing that anywhere that we could find.
Right.
Of course, people saw what we were doing and started copying us in other markets.
Awesome. So I found the listing and it's actually on my TikTok. I couldn't find the actual listing itself, but just going through this video, you can see this. It's an Airstream and it's in the desert, which you guys being in the forest is very similar. But what they've done is they've added all of these amenities around it, but the way the photos are shot, the way everything's kind of put together. So I'll pause it here for a second. You can see the campfire, but then they also have this little ring around it, so it's its own little place, right? Yeah. That little feature there makes it the campfire area, not just two chairs by a tent, right? There's something about that. Yeah. And then there's a little barbecue section over here. There's an outdoor shower over here with the tents that you guys have. I don't know how difficult that would be to get an outdoor shower, but I'm just spitting ideas.
We do have one. Yeah. We have to be careful about water source, but we could do it near the trailers.
So just an idea, right? Of something that is outdoorsy that creates something, a different kind of experience, right? And then they have this deck, which I saw you had decks on most of the tents, which is really important in my opinion. Because the deck makes it more real, right? It makes it higher end. It makes it glamping.
Oh, it's very expensive too.
Yes, it is, but it drives a lot of revenue. I've seen that. You can see they have the hammock set up over here. They have the hot tub within the actual deck, which is a great thing. But see this photo?
It's incredible.
See that photo?
Somebody in the
hammock. Yeah, right. That's showing off. That's like it's straight out of a magazine. It looks like she's having a great time. It looks like really enjoyable. People are picturing themselves in this actual hammock, right? And so, anyways, I could go on and on and on about just creating a masterful listing. There's even a hanging chair in there, which is such an easy one to do.
Hanging chair, okay.
Such an easy one. Two of them side by side, so they can just sit there and talk with the beer. You know what I mean? Something.
Oh, you're so right. Yeah.
So you're just creating more of an experience, and this thing is making $114,000 somewhere around there. US
117 a year.
Yeah, I think it's 114. But
I mean, their investment there is probably not that much.
Imagine if you could hit half that, right?
Yeah.
Or
on one listing. Yeah.
On one listing.
I mean, we're seasonal, so that's a little tough to do.
Definitely.
But I think that it's very doable for us to get into like the 25 to 30 range per trailer and tent, and that's kind of what just based on what we saw happen last year.
That's pretty good. That's very good. You can, how did you do last year, if you don't mind me asking?
Like our best performing tents did like 17,000.
Okay.
But we didn't launch until June like 20th. We got the first two tents, and those were our best two performers because they were on there the longest.
Yeah.
First rentals came like start of July.
Okay.
So we missed May and June. Because of late launch.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, it is what it is, right?
Right. So we're just thinking full season with a run up.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to charge more because we have Superhost. We're more established.
I would assume that with the right photos and the right amenities and creating that experience around each individual cabin, you would be able to get higher. 30 would be a minimum. If you hit 17 on those tents, in your first year, without any ramp up time. 30 would be an absolute minimum that you should hit, and you should be able to do more if you can get it at this sort of level that we're looking at. So
we're talking about adding in these changes, and that's great feedback. And part of the challenge for us is the buds are not out on the trees yet, so we won't be able to update these photos really until the end of May.
Yep. You're right. You're not wrong.
We can do some stuff, but it's tough, and that was a restriction last year, which caused us to be so late. Part of the reason we were so late. Yeah.
But it's it's something you're gonna have for years.
Oh yeah. We'll work on it. We'll get these better. Because even micro analysis for us to look at which ones did the best given the time they were up and what's different about those. And we do have things we're not playing on. We have that sauna, wood fired sauna. It's gonna be pretty epic. We need to get that thing up and running on the same site that has the shower, and we'll just expect that one to crush.
So that's what you're doing is exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're studying the ones that are working the absolute best. You're figuring ways to improve them, and then you're gonna do that to the other ones as well.
Now we don't have enough of those to do it on every site now, but that's something we can kind of steer into what's working. How can we make each one unique? So maybe one year somebody comes and stays at this one, next year they go and stay at the other one.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it, man.
Cool. So John, we have gone super long for REI Hot Seat here, but I wanna just jump into some basic direction for people who want to get into Airbnb management and like it just seems overwhelming to them.
So Airbnb management.
In other words, they want to invest in their own properties,
okay,
or maybe they want to do arbitrage. They want to rent out somebody else's.
Okay. What are the basics?
Yeah, like where should they start?
So, I always think. I mean, I'm very biased with this, but I truly believe that you need to start with the data.
So you start with the data, you go through all that.
Yeah.
Let's say you've picked the market you want, but you're like, how am I going to find a cleaner? How am I going to how am I going to manage it? What if somebody pops a breaker and I can't be there? What if it's not, your hometown, right?
Yeah. So, you just got to start. Let's put it that way. This is one of these things where you're not going to have all the answers. And nor should you have all the answers of like, how am I going to deal with a breaker when I'm not there? That's not, there's an answer to that, but you don't need it before you get started.
Yeah.
And so what I always tell people is, figure out the regulations, figure out the data, then just get started. And that's where you'll figure out all of the operations. You'll figure out how to run it.
So once you know it's a green light, the rest will come.
Exactly.
You need to do your due diligence and make sure you're getting into the right opportunity.
And then, so even for myself, when I first got started, I was just renting out an extra bedroom in my apartment. I did it so wrong that in the first 2 weeks I had to move in with my parents. It's so that I didn't get a bad review because I just had rented out my entire place rather than my room. I didn't realize.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so I had screwed it up right off the bat. And then, eventually I slowly realized like how to clean a home better, how to get automated messages. Then I figured out different softwares that I could be using. And like, just to throw some softwares out there, we were talking about, Price Labs is a software that you can use to
optimize pricing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So to make sure that you have the absolute best price for every single night. And it's one of the best software tools that are out there. It's one of these other ones where like you're going to pay $10 a month, but it's worth every single last penny because it's going to make you a ton of money.
Okay.
Then there's other sites like Hospitable and Hostaway that are softwares that help you with automating messages, automating cleanings, making sure that everything is if you have multiple listings, you combine them all together. If they're on multiple platforms, you combine them all together. Those are
we use Logify for that.
Logify is another one as well. There's a lot of them.
Well, I like, with Logify, we can take direct bookings. So we'll have people find us on Airbnb and then just go book on our website.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome, right? Because they're saving money, you're saving money.
Oh yeah, we have them say that on the platform. They're like, oh, well, I just found your website. Like, should I just book through there? I'm like, I'm not sure I can say that on there. You just do what feels best to you.
You just look at what number is better, right? You book from there. But so, I mean, those... I can't stress it enough. You don't need to overcomplicate it, especially when you just have one listing. It is so easy to manage one Airbnb listing. The hardest part is getting it set up.
See, I feel like the hardest part's the cleaner, but maybe that's just me.
Well, but it depends on the market too.
Yeah, our market is so Tobermory. It's hard because every single vacant apartment is used for an Airbnb. Every single vacant anything is used for an Airbnb. Right. So there's no place for employees to stay. We've solved that. Like, we can bring in employees and let them stay on our site in our extra trailers because we have many extra trailers. So we're trying to work through that now so that this year we're like abundantly staffed because last year we were struggling. I
mean, with that logic, you could probably even start cleaning other people's Airbnbs.
Oh, and charge a fortune for it.
So one thing that I realized is that when I had my Airbnb company in Chicago, and then my biggest expense was my cleaning company that I was using to clean all my places. And then I just realized, like, what if I just started hiring my own people? And I literally saved so much money by firing the cleaning company that I was using, hired my own people, and made enough money from that I was then able to hire somebody full time to run that cleaning company and run my Airbnb business. And so I started. So there's so much money in the cleaning business on top of the Airbnb that people don't realize. Yeah, and it's a second stream of revenue that's amazing.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. I love this discussion, and this is different flavor. That's why it's on the hot seat. It's not really an investor interview about what you've done, but like you were here to teach, and you did a great job, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I will be back to
we'll do a podcast. Deals. Yeah, we'll be talking about what you're up to specifically. I love that too, and I'm looking forward to that. So tell people where they find you in the meantime.
So the best place to find me, and I've said it probably 15 times, is my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I always direct people there, is just simply because there's so much free content.
Yeah.
And that is the Airbnb data guy.
Okay.
Or you just type in my name, John Bianchi, and you'll be able to find me, or type Airbnb data. I'm going to pop up. But every other, Instagram and TikTok, I'm on there as well as at the Airbnb data guy.
Okay. Yeah. We'll make sure that's in the description of this video.
But if somebody wants to directly reach out to me, they can just email me. So hello@Point Analytics is my email, and you can reach out to me and I'll answer any questions. And if we need to hop on a call, we'll hop on a call. Perfect.
Okay. Well, thanks for doing this. And guys, if you made it this far on REI Hot Seat, show some love in the comments. Like, subscribe, share this with somebody, because this is pure gold. This is a great episode. Appreciate you
having me on.
All right. Thanks, John.